Alright, in this tutorial we're going to go over how to rewrite an equation given in either slope-intercept form or just a different form into what is called standard form. Now, standard form of a linear equation is a model of a linear equation that has all of the variables on one side of the equation and the constant, or the number that is by itself, on the opposite side. And each of the coefficients of the variables must be whole numbers. So anytime you see an equation written in standard form, all of your x's and your y's will all be together on the same side, and all the numbers in front of your x's and y's have to be whole numbers. Then the constant, or the number by itself, is going to be on the opposite side. Now, the general form and the way you write standard form is ax with a capital A plus by equals c. Now, your a, b, and c must be your whole numbers. That's where these come from. Then notice how, again, right here, your x and your y are together on one side of your equation, and then your constant, or the number by itself, is off to the other side with your other equation. So let's look at our first y equals mx plus b. It's given to us in slope-intercept form, and what we have to do is rewrite it into standard form. Now, right now, we have our y on the left side. We have our constant on the right side, which means all we have to do is to move our x term over to the left side, which means the opposite of a negative 5 over 6 is to add 5 over 6x to both sides. I'm going to run out of room here, but I am doing this to both sides. So we have a 5 over 6x plus y equals 5 over 6. Now, the way you get rid of the fractions, because remember, we have to have whole numbers of our definition, is you multiply by the denominator of the term that you are trying to eliminate. So if we just take this one piece at a time, it's lucky in this case that we have the same number in our denominator. But we're going to look at this first fraction right here, this 5 over 6. And to get rid of our denominator, we're going to multiply every single term by 6. So we're going to take this times 6, take this times 6, and take this times 6. The reason why we do that is because the 6 on top cancels with the 6 on bottom. 6 divided by 6 gives us 1. And we're left with 5x. Now 6 times y, or y times 6, is 6y. And then same thing over here. We have 6 on top, 6 on bottom. Those things cancel each out, or it equals 1. And we are left with 5. Now this satisfies our condition for standard form. All of our variables are on the left. We have an x and a y. The number is on the right. And all of our coefficients are whole numbers. Once you satisfy both of those conditions, then your equation is written in standard form. You don't have to multiply by anything else. You don't have to switch your x and your y. Those can be in any order as long as they're together on the one side of the equation and the number is by itself on the other. So let's look at the second one. Our x and our y are separate. It's not really written in y equals mx plus b form, other than it's flipped, where your y is on the right side but not necessarily solved for. Your x is on the left, and your coefficient constant is also on the left. So we need to bring our x with the y onto the other side. So we're going to subtract by 1/8 x on both sides. I like putting my x first just because it's alphabetical order. So I'm going to do negative 1 over 8x plus this y. Because remember, these two things are not the same. X and y cannot be combined together. So now we have 3 different denominators that we need to multiply all of these by. What you could do is use the same tactic we did in our last problem and multiply by it one fraction at a time until you get rid of all your denominators. But you would have to do that 3 times. So we could multiply this by 9, this by 9, this by 9, then do it by 8, by 8, by 8, then by 6, by 6, by 6, and eventually things would all get canceled out. An easier way, or I guess the least amount of steps, is to find the least common multiple between 6, 8, and 9 all at the same time. You're going to multiply that number times all of these fractions, and it will completely eliminate the denominators between all of those. So if you want to use your multiple methods, we have 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. That may be good for now. For 8, we have 8, 16, 24. 8 times 4 is 32, 40. For 9 is 18, 27, 36. So 36 is in common with both of these, but not with 8. And we have 45, 54. So we're going to have to keep going with some of these. With 8, we have 48, 56. With 6, we're going to have 42. So I'm going to go ahead and try the factor tree method. Where's my eraser at? If you want to keep listing out your multiples from there, you can. I'm just running out of room. So once you get the same number in common with your multiples, you could do that times the entire fraction. I'm just going to use the factor tree method. So with 6, we have 3 and 2. With 8, we have 4, 2, 2 and 2. And then with 9, we have 3 and 3. So listing all these out, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2. And with 9, we have 3 and 3. So nothing is in common with all of these. So we really, truly do have to multiply by 6, by 8, and by 9. So 6 times 8 is, let me use a different color here. Um, 6 times 8 is 48. Then times 9. Carry the 7. 36 plus 7 is 432. So that's what we're going to have to multiply by all this as our least common multiple. But remember, you're able to reduce some of this with your fractions. So since we're multiplying by all three of these numbers, 6, 8, and 9, whatever your denominator is, you're essentially going to be multiplying by the other two of these numbers. So since 432 divided by 9 leaves you with a 6 and an 8 on top, so it cancels out with a 9, and you're essentially multiplying that by 48. Cancels out with the 8, you're multiplying it by 6 and by 9, which is 54. And then canceling out with the 6, you're multiplying 8 and 9, which is 72. So I'm going to try and hopefully you can see this, but if you're listening along at the same time, 48 times 7, 6 carry the 5, it's 28 plus 5 is 336 as your constant. 54 times negative 1x is just negative 54x. And then we have 72 times 5. Do it over here. 10 plus 1 is 360y. So that's the smallest way you can write where all of your constants are whole numbers, all of your coefficients are whole numbers, and your x's and your y's are together. So that is a very extreme case on how to write an equation in standard form compared to a very simple case where all of your denominators are the same number.